I've got an important question for you. What does it mean to be a man? I'm sure some ideas come to mind right away. A man is strong, confident, powerful, successful. I'm sure kind is in there somewhere. A man is, well, a man. Manly, masculine. We just know it when we see it, right? It's The Rock, it's Don Draper, it's the man DeLorean. But I believe there's a new, different model for manliness that could fit better in our evolving world. A model that brings us back to who we really are at our core. And that, surprisingly, is the potent masculinity of Mr. Rogers. Since Mr. Rogers has been an icon for decades, it's hard to look at him the same way you would, say, a teacher in your school or a guy you work with. A person. But more than so many famous people, his work was a crystal clear reflection of who he was as a person and what he thought about the world. I, like many of you, grew up watching Mr. Rogers. I didn't adore him or obsess over him as much as I did with stuff like Star Wars or Spider-Man, but he was always kind of around. A friend, literally a neighbor who popped into my home sometimes and made me feel good. Somebody who helped explain things to me. And once I grew out of this demographic, I pretty much forgot about him and moved on with my life because talking about being gentle and being kind was stuff only for little kids, not growing men. Cut to 25 years later when I see the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor and the biopic A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood a year later. I could see there was something revolutionary about this guy who I always thought was kind of just for kids. He was like a shot of medicine to treat a moment when we have drifted so far away from remembering how special the people are around us. And after reading as much as I could about the guy, I realized that he showcased his unique masculinity in 4 distinct ways. Number 1, power through gentleness.
What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right. What do? Do you pound some clay?
For a lot of people, they definitely do not handle their anger by punching clay. That's ridiculous. But what's even more ridiculous is how often we resort to violence to release our anger. More than 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner, a stat that skews overwhelmingly toward male-on-female violence, with 1 in 4 U.S. women experiencing severe intimate partner violence in any way. Fred Rogers taught us how to deal with anger in a healthy and non-violent way.
And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that 2 men could be working out their feelings of anger. Much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire.
He articulated fears and anxieties we all have directly. He didn't skirt around tough subjects like not fitting in, intolerance, and death. He made goodness, gentleness attractive instead of the brutality and violence that is still at the heart of so many other kids' TV shows and adult TV shows alike. Number 2, strength through forgiveness.
There's one thing that evil cannot stand, and that is forgiveness.
I think being a man definitely means facing tough situations and pushing forward through them. And I can't think of many situations tougher than forgiving someone you are angry with. That emotional toughness is exhibited really well in the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. The major lesson of the movie is about forgiveness, seen through the lens of the main character Lloyd and his father.
Do you know what that means? To forgive?
Once Lloyd releases his anger and gives forgiveness a chance, his grace gives his father an opening to apologize. Humanity and love is reciprocated with the same. Mr. Rogers is teaching us that pain is held by us and only us. And once you release it, you are able to move forward with your life instead of keeping a part of you stuck in the past. That is some emotional weightlifting. And truly, Mr. Rogers probably had the most totally jacked heart of anyone on TV. Number 3, success through service. Mr. Rogers used to say there are 3 ways to ultimate success. The first way is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. And the third way is to be kind. Mr. Rogers served us as children for 912 episodes over 33 years. In return, the American community inducted him into the TV Hall of Fame, gave him a Lifetime Achievement Emmy, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He had the goal of making each and every one of us feel seen and unique and loved, and he accomplished that goal. Generations of children adore him and look to him as a role model. His biographer Michael Long said he pushed people gently to deepen their morality, to heighten their emotional sensitivity, to strengthen their thinking about the world's problems. In his sweet and steady way, he was saying, "I accept you as you are. Now let's move on and become better people." Tangibly, visibly making the world a better place and making money off of it. I mean, the guy was still a multimillionaire. This is not flashy, it's not fancy, but it was successful. He did it by helping people, not dominating them. That's more success than many men can claim. And number 4, confidence through gratitude.
All of us have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are?
And this is the meat of it. This is where I think he's truly revolutionary, where he is confident in his message of love enough to ask people to be silent. In a world where men are taught to speak early, often, and loudly, to own a room through dominance, instead, he asks people to be quiet, not for him, but for themselves and the people who have loved them. This is actually the best scene in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
We'll just take a minute and think about all the people who loved us into being.
I can't do that.
Mr. Rogers averts his gaze from Lloyd right into the camera. He's looking at me. The purpose of this entire exercise and this entire film hasn't been to help Lloyd, a character in a movie. It's to help me. And this, for me, is the culmination of Mr. Rogers' message. If he could look into that camera and help out just one child, or the inner child in all of us, he had won. He wins when we win. If you treat every person you see with the same respect, that same love, you can't help but feel powerful, strong, successful, and confident. Now, even though Fred Rogers may be gone, he's still a great reminder that you are allowed to be powerful and kind at the same time. It's okay. You have this duality inside you. And maybe you might decide to wear the red sweater for the people in your life.